Hi folks, we're just getting ready to kick off my 2 hours of coding on the 2 Weeks Ready project. So we're just waiting for the handoff from Bald Bearded Builder over on Twitch. All right. We are almost ready to go here. There should be a pull request for us to review from Michael Jolly. How is everyone doing today? If you're here already, just a reminder, we're just waiting for the raid from Bald Bearded Builder so we can get started. All right. So hello, sorry for the little bit of a delay there getting started, but welcome to the stream. Really excited today. We're going to be working on a project that I've streamed about a few times already, but that is the Humanitarian Toolbox 2 Weeks Ready project. So this is a project it's a project I've been working on a little bit for the Humanitarian Toolbox, and it's all around emergency preparedness. So this idea that an emergency can hit at any time, and it's really important for us as citizens and as families to make sure that we're ready and have the supplies that we would need to be okay for a couple of weeks without having access to things like stores and all the normal things that we expect to have when we're not in an emergency scenario. So hello, thanks for the raid, Bald Bearded Builder. So what we've been doing this today is a bit of a coding streamathon for the Humanitarian Toolbox on this 2 Weeks Ready project. We started out the morning with Jeff Fritz, and then we had Bald Bearded Builder. And now it's off to me for a couple hours of coding, then we're going to pass it off to Carrie Payette. So first thing I'm going to do, just to get this started, is review the pull request that Michael just submitted at the end of his stream. So we'll take a look at that code, and we'll see where we want to take it next. I haven't really decided what I'm going to work on for the stream today, so we'll just dig into it and see where we want to take this. Taking a look at the code, I know one of the things, or a couple of the things that that was done here is removing some things that I had accidentally checked in yesterday, so thank you very much for that fix. We had a fix here with a endpoint that was incorrect, so we've got that all cleaned up, which is great. So the create endpoint works now. We have the ability to select icons for those emergency kits, which looks great in the UI now. And I'm getting rid of some the hard-coded icon that we had in there. And that's just some spacing, so this looks great. I see no reason why not to approve this. We'll approve it and just get that merged right away. Oh, I actually have to click merge, not just approve. We'll confirm that merge. And the cool thing about this is that as soon as I merge that, it's going to kick off some GitHub Actions for us. And that GitHub action is going to go and build the application and then also deploy it for us. So if you go to 2 Weeks Ready, the repo here, and right at the top of the README, there's a link that says try the live development version of the app. You can click that and actually try this out for yourself today and join in and test things as we go. So you do need to log in to use the app. Our application is sponsored by Auth0 here. So they've given us a open source license that we're able to use for the project, and you can go and sign up for an account. And once you've signed up, then you can log in to the application, which is something I've already done. So I'm signed into the app, and I can click on emergency kits and I can create them. So this hasn't been deployed yet. It doesn't have the changes that were just committed, but it will soon once that GitHub action completes here and does the deployment. So let's see what it's working on. It's doing the Npm Build. So what it's building is, in this case, the front end of the application. So it's doing a build of the UI, which is built using Npm and the Vue CLI. And now that it's done that and built up the app the way we wanted, it's logging into Azure, and it's going to deploy that out to the CDN so that the latest version is available there for everybody to try. And now that that code is merged in, what I'm going to do is go and make sure that I have the latest code. 2 weeks ready, git pull. So within here, there's a couple of folders. There's the admin, 3 folders now because Jeff Fritz added the admin folder, which is going to be the admin UI for this application. There's an API, which is an Azure Functions based API that the UI talks to, and we have a 2WR, the 2weeksready-app, which is the VueJS application. The VueJS application that is that PWA that is the actual application that people will use on their phones. I've got the latest code here. I am going to spin up the API locally, I think, so I'm just going to fire that up. I typically use Visual Studio Code for this, for the API. And one thing that I did notice, so we have a project reference here to this common project, but we don't have it in the solution yet. So that's something that I'm going to add here just so that it doesn't get lost. I think it's just called .common. Actually, you know what? I am going to not edit the solution file manually because I feel like that's a good way for me to just make a mistake. So what I am going to do is use the .NET CLI to do that. So it's something that I haven't used often, but there is a .NET add to solution CLI. There's a way to do this from the command line. There's this .NET SLN command. So we can do add. Yeah, so we can do add to the existing solution file an existing project. So let's see if we can do that. So we're going to do so within 2 weeks ready. Oh, what are we missing here? Interesting. Where is that file, that project? Is it under admin? Let's open this in Explorer because I'm a little bit lost at the moment. So we had a few things move around a little bit, and I'm just kind of familiarizing myself with what changed since we had some activity on the project today. Well, let's have a look at Explorer. We've got the API has a 2 weeks ready folder. That's the API, that's the functions app itself. And then down here, oh, there's the 2weeksready.common. Okay, so it's right at the root. Well, we might want to move that into a sort. Well, no, that should be fine. That should be fine. Okay, so now that I know where it is, I should be able to go and add that to the solution file. Okay, so the solution file is in the API folder. It's called api.solution. So I do .NET SLN api.sln add, and what is it expecting me to pass in here for the project? It's saying, are there some examples? They always have some good examples at the bottom here. So to add a C# project, I just need to give it the path to the project. So that should be easy enough. I think it's / 2weeksready.common / 2weeksready.common.csproj. And now when I look at that solution file, it has that reference in there, which is good. And then it's a little bit confusing now because when I open this in Visual Studio Code, it doesn't have the 2weeksready.common in here, so it gets a little bit confused in terms of understanding where my entities are coming from. Like this kit.userid. Oh, that string is not defined. That's weird. .NET Build. How is everyone doing this Friday? I'm glad because it's warmed up here in Calgary where I live. We've been, kind of the last week, it's been really cold, below minus 30 Celsius, and today when I woke up it was only minus 25 Celsius. It was much warmer than the previous few days. It's warming up and I may actually brave going outside later today. We shall see. Okay, so that does build, no problem there. But I'm a little bit confused why we're getting some errors. Core Bob, you were complaining about it being minus 15. Yeah, it was minus 37 yesterday morning when I woke up. And for some reason in my office, which is like in a room on top of my garage, it was really, really cold. Like the heat at night just wasn't getting into the office. So I got into my office and it was only 16 degrees Celsius. I had to bundle up until the sun came up and the office heated up a little more. Trying to figure out why this is complaining about system.string, and I think it's because we don't, inside of this Visual Studio Code workspace here, we don't have a reference to that TwoWeeksReady.common. So I think what I'm going to do is maybe have the concept of, there's this concept of a workspace that allows me to add other folders to the project that I have open, so then I can go up a level and go and open this folder. And now everything resolves properly. So that's interesting. I think if I do that, what happens is it adds this little workspace file. Oh, no, it didn't. I'm going to have to think that through because we want it to be really easy for people to just pop this open no matter what system they happen to be running. I think what we're going to do is probably just, well, we'll leave it for now, but that's something I'm going to come back to. So if you open this in Visual Studio, you just open the solution file. Like in Visual Studio 2019, you open the solution file, everything should be fine. But for me right now, at least this is working. So let's see if there's some Azure Functions that we can work through here. First thing I'm going to do is just double check my local config settings, which appear to be okay. So I'm using, our Functions API for this project is using CosmosDB as a data store. And I really like to use, if I can, the local emulator for that so that I don't have to connect up to cloud resources just to do local development. That allows me to make changes to the way the collections are structured within CosmosDB if I need to, without worrying about breaking the version that other people might be using. So when it works for me, I do like to use that CosmosDB emulator, which fortunately is working for me today. And the one thing I do need to do is just grab this connection string. So I'm not too worried about you seeing my account key because that is not a public facing instance. That is just the thing that is running on my machine. And it looks like it didn't change. I wasn't sure. Okay, so I've got this guy configured here using my local settings.json to point to my local Cosmos DB. And I should be able to spin this up by just doing, basically by just pressing F5 here within Visual Studio Code. Doing some compiling, and then it runs func host start to start up the API. And there it goes. Okay, so the API is running locally. What I'm going to do now is fire up the client application just so that I can test this out, make sure that things are working. So to do that, I'm going to go into that 2wr.app folder, and we'll do a we'll open that in code as well, and then we'll just run the app. So the configuration for this application when I'm running locally, let me zoom in for everyone because I know that that text is way too small. Hopefully that's big enough for everyone here to see. Okay, so I have a .env.local here where I point the API to my local running instance. So when I run this app, I'm going to log in using auth0, but when I'm talking to the API through the app, it's going to be hitting my local Azure Functions here. So what I'm going to do is come into my Azure Functions, which I probably need to zoom in. No, it zoomed in both, so that's cool. So this guy, nope, sorry, wrong instance. Okay, so in here, what I'm going to do is in the emergency kits API, we have this endpoint that we call to get our list of emergency kits. I'm just going to put a breakpoint there just to show that we're hitting that and make sure that everything's working the way we expect it to. And here I'm just going to do npm run serve to fire up the app with the local development server. And we wait. Does always take a little bit to start up that development server, but once it's up and running, we're able to make changes really quickly within the VueJS application, and everything gets hot reloaded for a really nice developer workflow without having to stop and recompile and wait for the compile and page to reload. Here we go. So we'll fire that up. Here's my app running locally. One of the things we added yesterday was this banner at the top that just reminds people this isn't the real app. This is just a development version of the app. Don't rely on this for actually storing your emergency kits in an emergency scenario or having your family plan. This is really only for development testing. Okay, it remembered who I was. It logged me in. When I click on emergency kits here, it makes that call to get the emergency lists, which is cool. And that should just work. So hopefully the authentication did not fail, and it didn't. And what we're able to do here now, as part of that authorization, we're able to grab my user ID here, my auth0 user ID, so we know which user it is that logged in, and then we're able to ask, query our collection for only the kits that are for that user. And that executed successfully, and I expect that I'm going to have 0 kits. So no kits, that's totally what I expected to have happen. But, oh cool, so we're able to see all the changes that were made in the previous part of this stream. So I'm able to come in here and give my kit a name, my go bag, and it's going to have a little emergency icon on it. And did that create? Oh, yeah, it did create, but I have a breakpoint set here still. Fantastic, there's my go bag. So I can create them. I'll just add a second one. Do we have a dog icon? Sadly, no. Let's do something like this. Cool, there's my kits. We don't have the ability to drill into them yet and see the details or edit, but I can add and delete. So that's a good start. At least we have some of those basic CRUD operations in place. Let's see where we want to take this next. Hello, David West, my friend, one of the other Daves. Good to see you. How are you doing? All right, so I'm going to head back to the repo because I know that Carrie has a bunch of really good documentation in place around what we're expecting. Well, that's a good question. What are you adding / building? That's exactly what I'd like to go and figure out. So I wasn't sure where things would get to with the 2 previous streams on the project, so I'm just kind of reviewing that now, and we're going to have a look. So the idea with the emergency kits is that we're going to have, when creating emergency kits, we need to provide a starting point. This will be a generic list of items for one person. Type of kits at this time will include home kits, go bags, car kits, work kits. Right, so that's part of what needs to be defined inside of the admin app. I don't think we're quite there yet, but let's see if there's anything else that we can add on to this to get us at least a step closer. A kit shall include a name, description, photo, expiry date boolean. So one of the things we could do is start adding some of this other information. So the idea is that you'll come into the app and when you go to create a kit, there'll be like these pre-built kits to choose from. So you'll be able to say that, okay, our house has 3 people in it, 2 pets, and you can kind of calculate what some base emergency kit, or it will list out some base emergency kit items that it thinks you should have, and then you can add and edit to those as per your needs. But we don't quite have all of that information for the base kits there yet. However, what can we do to kind of bring this one step closer to completion? We have these items all defined for now. We don't have the kit items yet in terms of when we create. Right now it's just those 3 items. I did notice that there was things like the kit items have names, descriptions, photos, quantity per count. Oh, that's in the base kit. All right. But the emergency kit itself also has a description for each item, a expiry date, quantity unit, photo. Okay. So let's see if we can maybe get the API built out for saving these kit items. I think that could be a good first start for us. Well, let's have a look. So right now when we go to create those items, it is really just passing in, the way that gets passed over is through this emergency kit piece. We pass it a new kit, but that kit doesn't have kit items on it yet. It's just the name. I think we should be able to see it here. So when we do create kit, it's just passing in the name, color, and icon. So eventually what we want the ability to do here is have that list of kit items also defined as part of the kit that we're passing in. So maybe what we can do is just start out with the very basic aspects of a kit item. I know that eventually we'll need to build those out based on a base kit, but for starters, we could start with just those. If each kit item had if we go back to that entity diagram, if it even just had a name and description, that would be and quantity unit. Oh, I guess quantity could mean different things depending on what you're talking about. Like, let's say you had some prescription pills that you needed in your kit. That might be a quantity of pills or a quantity of bottles. Water you might have in quantity in liters or whatever it is that other countries measure their water in. And we got a photo is available in kit. Okay, so yeah, let's start with just like name, description, then maybe we'll start adding some other aspects of this as we go. Let me see if maybe what we can do for starters is we'll just focus on the API side. We'll see if we can post some requests there and actually get kit items stored as well. I think that part might just automatically work for us as it stands today. We might not actually have any work to do in the back end because I feel like if I go to kit, a kit already has a list of kit items and a kit item already has all of these things on it. So it looks like we probably don't need to do anything here other than, I don't even know if we necessarily need these things just because we're storing this in CosmosDB. We don't need those like relationship properties to be defined or those foreign keys to be defined. The kit item is already part of a kit, so the kit ID and the user ID, or the user ID is already within the kit. We might need to set the ID or something, but we'll just see if we can get it to save something. So if I were to go and open up Postman, I have a feeling that this is just kind of going to work out of the box with the work that Carrie did on the API already. So let me just see if I can get a a simple request added in here. I'm going to create a new collection called, I don't need to update this, 2WR. Here I'm going to add a request. This is going to be create kit, and it is going to be a post request to, what is that API endpoint? Emergency kit create. Is this guy. And what I'm going to have to do here is just grab a bearer token from the app so that I know how to, or so that I can actually authenticate when I'm doing this as well. I'm just going to go and grab that from here. There's my access token that I'm going to grab so that I can pass that in as part of my request with Postman to the API. When we're using the app kind of handles all of that for us to pass the bearer token in. But here I'm just going to go say we're going to pass a bearer token, and it is this one. Actually, before we do create, let's just see if we can do a get. I'm just guessing at that's not the right API endpoint at all. I'm just guessing at things, which I wouldn't recommend as a strategy for using an API. The correct endpoint is just emergency kits. Emergency kits, send. 404 not found. What am I getting wrong here, folks? Anybody else see it? Don't CosmosDB, sorry, I didn't see your message there. Don't CosmosDB rows need a reference? So the thing that's being stored, actually, let's just go take a look at that. So when I look at my CosmosDB emulator here, I can actually go and explore my collection and see the items in the collection. So within my collection, I have two emergency kits that I defined, my go bag and my doggy bag. So yes, there's an ID here to uniquely identify each item in the collection. But when it comes to kit items, those are just going to be a part of that document that's identified by that ID. So the thing that we're storing in the collections is the entire kit. So the kit with its associated kit items. So when I want to get a kit with its items, I don't have to say, go get me the kit, and then go get me all the items for the kit from some other collection. It's all stored as a single document. So what I would like to try to do here is just see if I can also pass in kit items as part of this. So very good question. I hope that answered the question. Let me know if it didn't. Okay, why can't I call? Why is it giving me a 401? Oh, it did. It said succeeded. 404 not found. Thumbs up. Makes sense. All right. What am I doing wrong here? It says that it can't find this endpoint. But it's right there. I can see it with my own two eyes. Oh, I'm trying to post to it. So okay, so I make the call to get my emergency kits. There's my emergency kits. Cool. Let's call this one get kits. I'll just save that for later because I have a feeling I'm going to be in here a little bit as we're working. And I'm going to duplicate this, rename it to create kit. And this one is going to have -create. It's going to be a post. And the thing that we pass in is raw JSON, which looks a little bit like this. So we had, actually, you know what I can do is cheat. I can come in here and at least get my starting point. So when I go to create one, I'm not going to pass in an ID or a user ID. Those are calculated on the server side. But what I wanted to check here is if I can create one with kit items and just verify that that actually gets saved in the database behind the scenes. So can I zoom in here as well? Gotta love that these Electron apps, they all have the same shortcut for zooming in, which is great for streaming. Back to Carrie's diagram, or actually, I don't even need the diagram. I can look at what is a kit item here. A kit item has a name, a description, a quantity. So let's start with that, name, description, quantity. I think if we can get that part of it working today, that will be a good step forward for the project. So we had name, description, very important that it's water that we can actually drink. And I've got $25 of them, 25 of I don't know what unit, because I'm not doing that part yet. Click create, and it says unauthorized because I did not set my authorization, my bearer token this time. Let's go and grab that from here. I know there's a way to share these for the collection, and I didn't do that, but good enough. Okay, so it looks like it created it because I got my ID back, and we got our kit items. So that all just magically worked. It looks like Carrie must have sorted through all of that yesterday, which is fantastic. So was there anything special done to make that happen? We did, where is create kit? Get kit, create kit. Ah yes, it goes through and sets the IDs and the user IDs. So Carrie already did all this, and that's fantastic. You know what? Let's switch over to VueJS then and see if we can create a UI there to add and remove kit items from our kit when we create it. So if and also let's just verify that that actually showed up in the database, kind of circle that all the way around. So I should have 3 documents in this emergency kits collection now. I had my doggy bag, my go bag, and I guess I called this one my go bag as well. I could call it my go bag 2 now, just to avoid confusion. And there's my water bottles, so that's great. That information all gets stored. The values that I didn't get set, but that's okay. We can, if we can get the basics working, then we'll start adding those pieces to the puzzle. Excellent. So our API is in good shape. I'm just going to leave that running in the background here. And as I said, we'll switch gears to over here on the emergency kit create. So this should be reasonably doable. What we want to do is come into here, and if I hit refresh here, I should have my 3 bags now. Cool. So when we do this create, like we don't have a ton of information here yet, but I guess what we want to add is below the icon, the ability to add those kit items, which is a little bit like probably a lot of the samples that we see for SPA type applications where we're just like adding to a to-do list kind of thing. So there should be some good examples there to draw from. Let's take a look at that component and see what we need to do there. Emergency kit create. So this is the emergency kit create component. I'm gonna resize things here so that we're focused on it a little more. We have our list of icons to choose from. We have the name, color, and icon that must be defined up here. So I think what we could do is just add as part of our data the concept of kit items as an empty array initially. And then we're going to have a few methods. So I suspect we're going to have add kit item, which will be a function. We're going to have remove kit item, where we pass it in an item. And basically what that looks like is, what does that look like? It doesn't like me having item in there because it's unused. So let's start with add. So add would be saying this.kitItems.push. And we're just going to push a empty item in there. Well, not empty. I'll maybe give it a name just so that we can see it. The name would be new kit item. Oh, it is not liking this code. What did I do here? Oh, I've got too many squiggly brackets. Okay, so I just push a new item in there. Removing one will either be by index or by item itself, but let's probably do it by index. So we'd have index, and we would say this.kit items dot. Oh my goodness, can anybody ever remember how to remove an item from a array? Splice, is it? Yeah, so we do index, comma 1. I think I got that right. One of those JavaScripty things that I have to go look up every single time. Okay, so below our icon selector here, we're going to want a section where we have all those list all those kit items out. And one of the things we need to do there, obviously, is do the add. So why don't we start with just a button? Doesn't it return a whole new array or something? See, that's the thing that I always get confused with, because it feels like it's really not consistent with the JavaScript libraries. So I think with Splice, it says it returns the deleted items. So Splice manipulates kit items, the original array, to remove the ones that we specified, and then it returns a new array with just the items that we deleted. So here it's going to have just that array with a single item in it, which is a little odd, like not really what I would expect from that function, but I'm sure there's a good reason why it does that. Or maybe there isn't. Who knows? JavaScript is a mystery to me sometimes, but a powerful mystery that allows us to do many wonderful things. So here we're going to bind this to, when we do a click, it's going to be add kit item. Got some wonderful code completion in there. And I just need to bring up the Viewify documentation because I do not remember how to make a button. One of the things that I really love about Viewify is how good the documentation is. So I should very quickly be able to come in here and scroll around to find a button that looks like an add button, like that one, and figure out what I need to do. So that one is like that. That's what I want my button to look like. Thank you, Viewify, for being awesome. I don't know about color indigo. We'll maybe do color green. MDI plus. And I'm actually going to add some text to this one, so that's probably not the right kind of button that I wanted. Let's see what that looks like. Add kit item. Yeah, that was definitely not the right kind of button. We wanted it's probably this class that's not the right thing. And we're also going to want a container of some sort here, so vlist is probably what I'm going to do. Perhaps it was a vrow. Probably a vrow first for my button. I'll put that in there. Let's see what that looks like. The vlist is going to be where we put out in all of those individual kit items. Cool, it does not like this. No matching end tag. I wouldn't like that too either if I was a parser. Very important that you get that markup right. Still not liking that. /vlist. There we go. Cool. Okay, we're gonna make that look a little bit different. Good question, David. What's the, I'm gonna call you Westy because that's what I call you in real life. What's the difference between View and Viewify? So View is the library that we use to do all the data bindings, and that's like the SPA library within, or that we're using to build the application. The library itself is really quite small relative to the bigger picture of everything that we pull in, and it handles kind of the application lifecycle piece, the concept of components, and the ability to do the data binding. And then we start pulling in other bits to add other functionality. We pull in things like View Router to allow us to go from things like this URL of prepare/emergency-kits/create and have that map to a particular component within the application that's being rendered here. So we use View Router for that. We use Vuex for state management. And then Viewify is a library that we use for all of the UI components. So it has a rich set of material design-based components that allows you to build up that UI. So another sort of UI-ish library that you might be familiar with using would be Bootstrap. Viewify is kind of like a Bootstrap, but it takes it a step further in that it's components specifically for Vue, but also adds more behavior to it. So it's not just styling, it's also the behavior. And it's very extensible. So this is turning into a sales pitch for Viewify for some reason, but I guess I just really like Viewify. The things that I really like about Viewify, as I said, the documentation is fantastic, but also it's very extensible. I really like the way that almost any piece of a component I can customize through this concept of slots. So if I don't like the way that like the items inside of actually we can show an example of that because that's what was done in the last one. So we have a vSelect, which is just a drop-down. And if I want to change the way each item within that drop-down is rendered, I can just define this slot here, the item slot for it. I can define that, pass in the item, and then have it rendered however I want. I can start putting other components in there. So it's very composable in that way, and I really like that. And as I said, it has behavior as well. So it's more than just the styling of a component. It's also, the ability to pass in items to it, the ability to have events and subscribe to events and have that behavior that you would expect from more of a rich component, UI component that you might have been familiar with if you were doing something like traditional Windows application development, for example. Or if you're doing something like Blazor development today on the web. Excellent question. Now, where was I? Oh, right. I was trying to add kits. So the idea is that I want to add a kit item whenever I click this button. So that should just be binding the click event and saying call add kit item whenever we do that. And I am completely doing that incorrectly because one of the challenges I have with my job is that sometimes, or very often in the same day, I will be working on an application in Angular, I will be working in React, and I will be working in Vue, all in the same day. So very often I do end up mixing up the syntax for those three different frameworks, but that is okay. Okay, so that seems to be doing something, but we're not actually rendering anything out yet. So let's see what we might want to do for that. I'm thinking that I'm just going to do like a simple list component for it. And within that list, we'll render some other components for the user to actually edit the data for that kit item. I don't know if list is definitely the way we want to go here longer term, but I think it'll work for us for now. And what we might also want to do is we might just want to list it out with the kit name, the item name, kit item name, and then when they tap on it, have it maybe pop up a modal to actually edit the details or transition to like another component to do that. I'm not sure yet, but we'll experiment with it think the key for today will just be get some of that base functionality in place. So very simple flat list would look like what? I suppose like this. So we have a vlist. It has a header, which we probably don't need to put in there, and then a list that we just iterate over a set of items. So that looks easy enough. And I had kind of started that, but didn't really know what the inside of it was going to look like. So you know what? We'll put that header in there just so that we can see what we're editing. So these are my kit items. And we can bind to something called the selected item. Sure. We'll add that in there too. So this would be selected item, which will just be null for now. And we're going to bind to kit items. We get an I and an item. So item is the actual kit item, I is the index within the list. And so we're going to use, that's important because we're going to need that for when we do the delete piece. But let's just comment this out for now. And here I'm just going to put item.name. Is that what we called it? I believe we did, yes, new kit item. I mean, in theory, that's it. I should be able to have kit items added there now. Oh, look at that. We got kit items. You know what? It's going to be weird, but I suspect that I will be able to just hit create here, and it will save it. Well, not yet, because I'm not actually passing it in, but in the absence of any kind of validation, I think that I can just say this dot kit items like that, and it's going to save it for us. Why don't we test that out? Just see if it works. Okay, so this is a crazy test. I don't know what color equals crazy, but we'll add a bunch of kit items that we haven't, no ability to edit the names or anything else on it, but what happens when I hit create? It saved it. Did it do what we expected? If I go to CosmosDB, we have kit items. Amazing. Okay. This is fun. This is fun. We're getting somewhere here. A loaded question again from Westy. What is my preference for SPA development today? Blazor or TypeScript, JavaScript, or something else? My personal preference would, so I haven't actually built anything in production using Blazor yet. I would love the opportunity to, but that opportunity just hasn't come up. So it's the one I'm probably most interested in trying. But I do have to play to what my team knows when I'm building these things, and also like I work as a consultant, so it depends on also what my clients are looking for. The preference right now for me ends up being using a JavaScript or TypeScript like traditional SPA framework. Either my preference being either Vue or React. These days anyway. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to an opportunity to do a Blazor project. It just hasn't come up yet in any real world scenario for me. I do have one client that's looking at rebuilding they currently have a really big Windows Forms application, and I think that Blazor for them to maintain, well, for one thing, to kind of transition those skills of their team over, and also just the functionality that they're looking for, I think that Blazor is going to be a really good fit for them. So we are looking at doing a little proof of concept with that client just to test that out. So I'm pretty excited about that. So this is interesting. Let's see if, as part of our add kit item now, instead of just rendering a kit item, let's see if we can make that editable. You know what? I'm sitting here thinking, what do I want this UI to look like? And I suspect that we already have some concepts of that in here. Maybe not. Wiki, emergency kits, default content, home, account features. I guess we don't quite have any UI mockups for this, so what do we have left in the stream? About an hour. I think we won't worry too much about the UI being perfect necessarily. We'll just see if we can get some of that core functionality in place, and then we can start iterating on what that UI looks like. I think that'll be a good first step. Rambling Geek, hello. Thanks for joining. We are just about to, we have this concept of creating an emergency kit, and now we are adding emergency kit items to the kit, and we'd like the ability to rename them, because kit items named new kit item doesn't really make a lot of sense. So I think what we're going to need here is maybe an input component. I think that should be fine in the context of what we're trying to do. So that would just be a very basic input that would look something like this. And it would be required. Let's just see. So a text field. This is coming back to me a little bit now. This has rules assigned to it. If not value required. Oh, neat. That's a nice, easy way to do validation. I'm just going to do this without validation, because I like to live dangerously that way. So inside this list item, I don't know if this is going to work now. What can I put inside of a list item? Can I just put whatever I want? Can I take this and bind it to item.name? No rules. This is probably going to look super weird. Oh, so white and bright. Oh, are people making fun of me because I don't use a dark theme? Yeah. Dark themes are cool, but they're not for everyone. That's my take anyway. Where was I? I'm in the wrong browser. This browser is the one I was looking for. If I add a kit item, okay, there is an input there, but it's not actually letting me edit. Just teasing a little, that's fine. I can handle a little bit of teasing. Main input, kit item name is what we want that to say instead of main input. But why is it read only? That's the thing that I'm not too sure about. Let's have a look at the docs. What am I doing wrong here? Why is my text field? Let's look at text fields instead. I think you should make the font white too. Thanks for helping, Westy. I respectfully disagree. I don't think I should make the font white. But I would like to make this text field editable, and I'm a little bit confused why it's not. So what's the deal with model binding on these things? Functions pass the current vModel as an argument. What does this look like? vModel. vModel. There's something very simple here that I'm missing. I'm not too sure what it is. It might have something to do with me doing this inside of a list component. Any ideas from the viewers on the stream today? Do you have to set length? I don't think so. They don't do that in their examples. vModel name. And then they're just binding. I wonder if the, you know what? I bet this thing that I'm binding to isn't an observable, and that might be why. Oops, that's not what I wanted to drag over. That's my developer tools. I'm going to go and select that component. Oh, weird. View. Select. There's a text field. I mean, that one's working, right? I think the problem is that here, when I go to this text field, the thing it's binding to probably isn't an observable, which means it can't do the binding the way it wants to. And how would I tell? Because if I look at this guy and I look at data, I'm not even sure how I would tell if that was the case. I guess I can do a console log. Your video is so sharp. Thank you. Which video? Like my face? Or my beautiful light themed IDE? My face. My face is clear. Yeah, I'm running an Elgato cam link. And to that, I have hooked up my mirrorless Panasonic G85. And it works really well. I happen to have really good lighting in the office. This is just natural lighting coming through the windows. Got pretty lucky. What sort of lens do I have on that camera? I have a Mzuko Olympus 25mm f1.6 lens. I had to stare at the camera to see what that was because I couldn't remember. But yes, it's that f1.8 that makes it really nice and clear, nice and crisp. It is a good fast lens. So that was a camera that I just had and ended up reusing. Okay, this isn't working and I don't know why. And it's kind of annoying me. But what am I doing wrong? This is going to be something just really silly. Why can't I? Okay, we have other inputs up here. So what do they look like? It's a text field with a label and a V model, and it's required, and that just works. It's a text field with a V model and a label, and it's required. Okay, time to do some random Googling as we do sometimes in software development. Add kit item. Beautify. I want a list of text fields. Where I bind to vModel. That's not helping. Lists. You know what? Pretty sure list is the wrong thing to be using here anyway, so let's maybe just move on to something a little bit different. We do have the concept of tables. And I think with tables, they do have the concept of something that you can, with an edit dialog or with CRUD actions, so you can edit. Maybe we should do this instead. think this might be a better approach longer term anyway. Let's do that. Okay, so we define a data table. We have a template for everything in it. I think I can probably just pull this out and use it as my starting point for these kit items. We'll give that a try. See if that works out a little better for us. So instead of having this vlist, I'm just going to pull that out entirely. Bye-bye list. Here's my data table. We have, it's a lot of markup, but it's also kind of wrapping everything over onto individual lines. So here we're going to have our kit items is the thing that we're working on. I don't think we need to sort anything. We'll start with that. We do have to define headers, as I remember using this API before. So those are just something that is part of our data for the view component. So here I'm going to go as part of data, define headers. The headers are going to be, we said name, description, and quantity. And well, whatever. We'll leave the sorting in there, but name, description, and quantity. Oh, and we do need that actions piece as well, which is definitely not sortable. So the actions, if we look at that sample, actions is the piece with the buttons here, so adding and deleting, so which is good because we'll need that delete as well. Maybe we can get that part working. So we bind to our items. That's all good. We have this concept of a dialog. Let's just see if we can wire up the delete first. I think that'll be a good thing to have in there. Delete dialog and dialog. We'll add both of those. So these are just true. These are booleans defining if those modals are actually displayed or not. We're going to add those up here. Do some formatting on that file. And somewhere in here they're also in the template going to have, there was the data table, but there's also those modals. Maybe I already copied them in. Yeah, it looks like it. We have a template for the item. What's it complaining about here? Not support any modifier. That's weird. Are you sure you want to delete this item? Okay, cancel. Delete item, confirm. So what did they have for those? Defined in their example. That would have been under the script portion. Edit item, delete item, confirm. You know what, we're going to need all of this, so let's just copy it. So it's the index of the item we're editing. There's a lot of stuff here. Okay, let's grab this guy too. Copying and pasting a lot of code here. What could possibly go wrong? Right? Nothing could go wrong. Oh, sorry, I noticed some comments over on YouTube as well, so hello. Everyone watching over there too. You asked, what are we doing? We are working on the humanitarian toolbox, and we're working on the 2WeeksReady application, which is all about emergency preparedness. And what we're trying to do is give people the ability to build up emergency kits and keep track of like when the items in that emergency kit expire, and just in general help people to be prepared in case of an emergency so that they have the supplies they need to take care of themselves and their families and their pets in case of an emergency. So right now we have the ability to create a kit, but we don't have the ability yet to add items to that kit, and that's what we're working on. We're working on adding those kit items to a kit when we create it. And we are looking at using this component here from Viewify to do that. So it would just list out our kit items, and we would have the ability to add and edit them and delete from the list of kit items. So that's the goal. I think that there's a way to make that, yeah, so it's nice and responsive actually. I like that about this component. So it's still going to look pretty good, and we can define what it looks like when we're on a mobile device, which is the primary target for this. But then we can also make it look nice and useful on, a desktop, which is where we're testing it right now. So, okay, so we had some things that we were pasting in here that was going to be part of our data within our VueJS component here. So we have our kit items, we have our selected item, which we might actually not need anymore. We have the index of the item that we're editing. We have the item that we are editing. I'm just gonna, right now we're just dealing with these basic properties. I'm gonna default that to, well, we'll say 0 for the empty edit item. And we're gonna expand that out to include all of the properties that we need, but for now we're just gonna do these basic ones just to get started. So description is going to be a description of my kit item. And then this is going to be my kit item. And quantity is going to be, I'll default it to 1 for the default kit item. Okay, so we have the pieces we need on that. We've added all the pieces we need as part of the data of this component. Now we need to add our methods, so part of the behavior of what happens when you click edit and add and delete. So we're going to kind of copy that pattern that they used over here. And that was not that section, but which one were we looking at? With the CRUD operations, right here. So that was this one. So they have some watches in here that we're probably going to need, but I think we'll come back to that. I'm more interested in the methods, specifically these ones. All of these methods we're going to add to the methods for our component. So those go here. And I'm going to rename these a little. So instead of edit item, it's going to be edit kit item and kit items. So what we do there is we go and grab the index of that particular item that was passed in, and then we're going to create a copy of it to be the thing that we display in the modal dialog. And so for this one, it's this dot. Oh, that part was already okay. Yeah, there's nothing to do there. That's just creating a copy of the object so that we have the ability to hit cancel and not apply the changes that we made to that object. Deleting an item goes and grabs the index of that item from kit item. So we say delete kit item, and then we display the dialog box saying, are you sure you want to delete this one? And then delete item confirm. You can see that they actually do this, the same thing we did, but it's going to be the items that we splice, and then we close the delete dialog. Closing the delete dialog just sets that dialog to false, sets the close dialog to false, and clears out the edit item on the next tick. Next tick is a kind of an interesting little view thing that allows you to go and, do I get a description here that I can? No, I don't. I don't understand it well enough to explain it, so I'm not going to try. But and then save finally is just saying go whatever we edited in that dialog, go and apply it to the data that we have stored in our kit items. And that's it. And then I think the main thing we need to do now is take a look at any of the bindings that we have on this template. So let's walk through that. We're binding to kit items. We have a template here that has the new item where we're saying, where is that binding to anything? Oh, it's binding to the dialog. This beyond thing is interesting. That's going to go and open that dialog for us. That's my understanding. And we have form title. I think we just want kit item here instead. Let's take a look at their example. Make sure I didn't miss something here. What is form title? It's a computed. Might as well add that in there. That seems to make sense. Telling us if we're adding or editing an item. So this part is actually that dialog that pops open when we go to edit a kit item. I believe we already have a computed section here. We're going to add that form title piece. Okay, so we display the form title. Here we're going to have the item name, and then we're going to have the description, and finally the quantity. And I think there's a way to turn that into a number input, but we will come back to that in a second. I'm going to get rid of all this other stuff because we don't have carbs and all these other properties yet, or any other properties yet. When we click cancel, it closes the dialog. When we hit save, it saves the dialog. Delete is saying, are you sure you want to delete this item? And it calls close delete. That makes sense. Delete item confirm. I feel like there was one thing we renamed. Was it edit item? We renamed to kit item. I'm going to go back and do some renaming after this is working. So the only thing that's an issue here is this slot here is telling me that the slot, item.actions. You know what? That might be okay. I think that might just be a thing with the tooling in VS Code. Doesn't know what that is. If I can create a new one called that added it, and create another new one. There's something about the defaulting here that isn't quite right, nor is the quantity being displayed. But we're getting somewhere here. We do have something. So instead of my CRUD here, I think that maybe it should say kit items instead. Let's take a look at how that is currently configured. So we are displaying this as a toolbar. I wonder if I just need to put the whole thing inside of a row. Is that going to look a little better? No, not quite. Euro vcard maybe? No. I'll come back to that part. Let's just see if we can get it working. So when I do a new item, I was kind of expecting that it was going to use this default item, but why isn't that being used? It creates, when I close it, it's supposed to default edit item to the default item. Well, there's why the quantity wasn't being displayed. New kit item. I don't need this anymore because we're using this new functionality here. We have create kit is what saves it. Edit kit item, delete kit item. Delete item. Should be delete kit item. And I don't think we need this reset. That's not really relevant here. New item, I'm gonna rename that to add kit item. All right. Is this gonna work now? I have a feeling that aside from it not laying out properly inside of this UI, this is actually going to work. So if I can't come in here and I say my fancy kit with items, I'll make it pink, and it is going to have, I love these icons that we added, a tank for some reason. I can add items to it. So this is item 1 with a description. We'll save that. We'll add another one. What else should I add to my kit? We had all these examples that they gave for us, and I've just been kind of ignoring them. I should really look at those. Sometimes we get distracted with the technical side of things, and we kind of forget, why are we building this thing in the first place, and what are the types of things that people want to add to these kits? So we do have these examples, things like ponchos, jackets, clothing, 2 weeks worth of food. Gallons, that's how other people measure their water, other than liters. Okay, so let's take a look. We've got, let's say we have water and we have 14 gallons of it. 14. Save. If I hit create, am I going to get a kit that has that in it? Let's go check the database. Woo! Item 1 with description, 2 of them. Water in big jugs, 14. Awesome. So we don't have all of the properties there, but we do have the ability to create kits with items. This is a big new piece of functionality for the app. Let's see if we can't figure out why this is just kind of laid out a little bit goofy here with the, why is the create sitting there? Why isn't this taking up the whole row? What is going on here? When we look at how they did this, the template is really not that different. And what does it look like for them? Looks normal, fills up the whole thing. What are we missing? What are we missing? I wonder if it has something to do with whatever the container is for the thing that's hosting all of this, or holding all of this. Let's collapse some things. So I added a row, and that didn't seem to help. We have a button that's just hanging out, and the whole thing is inside of a form. The whole thing is inside of a form. So what do they have for layout components in Viewify? I don't remember, but we can look it up. If we look at a form, so here they have the concept, that's like an inline form, right? They use containers and rows. So I think that's what I'm missing is containers and rows. Well, let's see if we can improve the layout of this a little bit. vcontainer, vrow, vcall, calls 12, md4. All right. I can work with that, I think. So we need a container. And that will close at the end of the form. And then I need rows and columns. So I think, oh, we had a container up top too. Oh, that's a different container. That's okay. These containers can be nested as far as I know. We can do a row for the name of the kit. That's going to be a v call. And then here I can do calls equals 12, was it? And MD. No, we'll just leave it as 12 all the time. It's just always going to fill the top. And then you know what I'm going to, this idea of the icon and the color picker, I think that could probably fit on a single row. So I'm going to try doing that here. See if I can define a row with 2 columns. And it's going to be maybe 6 and 6. I don't know if that, probably 9 and 3. So color can go there, and this select can go inside of this one, because it doesn't need to be very big in my opinion. If it's just the icon. Let's see if that's starting to look a little better. Okay, so it looks a little goofy here on a bigger screen. But what we could do to change that is that we could say on a large screen, that column is going to be different. So that's the, I'm already lost. Do a code format, that helps a lot. So this one here, we're going to say MD equals 3, or LG equals 3. So on a large screen, I only want that column to take up 3 instead of 9. Way out there. That didn't work the way I thought it would. Oh, there it is. I guess the breakpoint isn't where I thought it would be. Okay, so there's a color and our icon. I kind of like having those together because they are tied together. So when you change this color here, it also changes the color of the icon. This select could even be a little bit smaller, but this is looking better now. And what we can do is we just need, I think, to also wrap this in a row. Awesome, Carrie's back. Carrie is Coding Bandit. We're going to be rating her channel on Twitch as we wrap up this stream. All right, so we've got vcall. We're going to make this one always going to take up the whole width for that data table, I think. Makes the most sense. And then we just need a couple other rows. With columns that probably take up the whole space. I'm just going to copy that before I start putting stuff in it. So we're going to put, if we do get an error, that goes in that column. And then finally our create button goes here. All right, bringing it all together. Yeah, that's much better. I like how that's laid out now. And okay, testing this out, we've got creating looks better now. We've got an icon. We can add a kit item. I got a lot of those things. And those things. Yeah, that form lays out a lot better now. Let's see what it looks like on a tiny phone kind of screen. That's cool. I like how it does that for us. That's something that would have been way beyond my capabilities in CSS. So I'm glad that somebody else figured it out for me. So I can create that and save just like it did last time. So this is looking better. I've got a lot of weird data in here. So one thing I did want to do is that quantity, it did allow me to just start entering like random text in there. It should just be of type number. So let's take a look at the documentation for text field, because I do know that there is a way to make it just a number. But that does require me to open the correct browser window. All right, we were looking at form components, text fields. I'm just going to do a search here for number. Nope. Might just be a matter of setting the input type. I think that might be all it is. So let me have a look. When they did the password one, is it just type password? Type. Yep. So yeah, I think all I need to do here is just say type equals number. That should hopefully do the trick. Hey, Coding Bandit. I spent a bit of time going through the API and just wrapping my head around where things were at. I did update the solution file, going through things a little bit since we'll be passing it off to you here shortly. I did have to update the solution file just to add that new TwoWeeksReady.common piece to it. So that's added to the solution file now. And we've kind of ended up switching over to VueJS. So what I've been doing is when we go to add kits, we now have the ability, I've got a lot of random kits in here. I now have the ability to add kit items to my kit. And this is just very basic for now, but we have the ability to set a kit item name, a description, and a quantity. And then we can, increase, or we can add whatever else we need there. Now that we have the kind of pattern in place. So this is going to be my 15 gallons of water, 14 gallons. Right, the thing I was testing here, yes, it is a numeric input now. I can't enter. I'm bashing the alphabet keys here on my keyboard. It only lets me enter numbers. So that was the little change that I wanted to do there. And it does seem to look reasonable, at least on a phone. Reasonable in the sense that it's not totally weird. Yeah, and that all saves. I love that you did that work last night so that it's all working on the emergency kits API. So we're not able to create them based on base kits yet, but we do have the ability to at least add kit items to our kits, and we can see those in my database. So if I refresh and take a look, there's all the data that I had entered into my kit items. So I think that's probably as far as I'll get today. I'm going to submit a PR for that, and then I'm going to think through the structure of where we have that common project, because the challenge right now, let me submit a PR first, because we do have some good functionality that I think we wrote here. Before I go and actually push those changes, let's take a look at what we have. Did I really only change 2 files? I've been coding for an hour and a half and I changed 2 files. And one of them was adding a single line. Okay, so we added that CS proj to the solution. And then I It's only one file, but I did change a lot of things. Modified the layout here, we added the data table, and then we added that functionality down here that does that has the ability to add and remove those kit items. Did we test delete? I don't think we did. I should do that before I submit this. So what happens here? Close that. If I hit delete, are you sure you want to delete this item? Cancel. Are you sure? Okay. That's not working yet. We need to do that. Does this work? Edit works. Does it work if I cancel? It does. So what's up with delete? What did I break with delete? Items.splice is not a function. That's because items isn't a thing. So good thing I was walking through the code before submitting this. The problem with the delete function is that it's supposed to be on kit items, not on items. Okay. I'm going to add some random stuff here. Okay, if I try deleting the first one, does it work? Cancel. Okay. Still not liking that. Cannot read property, splice of undefined. Okay. No problem, Coding Bandit. You're not ready yet, but that's okay. I can still keep going for as long as you need, really. But I was planning to go for another half hour, so that's all good. Let's see here. Why is it? Oh, kite items. Oh, come on. This is the kind of thing that I was hoping the viewers would have caught. Earlier in the stream, Fritz was saying that yeah, kites are cool, but not as cool as kittens, right? He was saying he was seeing kit items, and when he saw that, it looked like kittens to him. Kit items is the thing we're looking for, not kite items and not kittens. Well, they can be kit items for your kitten. That's completely valid, since you can have emergency and should have emergency kits for your pets. All right, I think that will fix this problem. Like fierce kittens, that's right. I'm gonna add a couple more. And let's see, delete now works. Excellent. Add, edit, delete of kit items within this create screen works. Let's submit a PR, because I think this is a good addition in terms of the functionality that we've added here. Let's take a look. We got I still am surprised that I only edited 2 files after all that, but we'll do git. Well, first I need to create a branch because I'm still coding on master here. Create kit with items. Oh. Go down a level there, make sure I get both the files, and I'm going to commit that. Commit messages, checking in. There's a junior developer I was mentoring earlier in my career, and one of the things I was coaching him on is whenever you commit your code, make sure that you give a good message that says what you're doing. And the way he understood that, he didn't quite grasp what I meant. I did a poor job of explaining it, but he started checking things in to source control, and his commit messages were checking it in because that was a description of what he was doing. A better way for me to explain that was have a message that describes the change that you are committing, not that you are checking code in. So here we have ability to add kit items, add/edit kit items when creating a kit. And then I'm going to push that. I'm working directly off the HTBox repo. TwoWeeksReady repo is one of the members of the team that has access to do that. If you're an open source developer, just anybody in the community who wants to try that, you would be working inside of your fork of the repo, but the process is generally all the same. But I'm just going to come in here now, and I should see that there's my push that I did, and I can create that. And one of the things I like to do here is sometimes just go and add a kits with items. I like to add a screenshot to the pull request just so that people have a little bit of context as to what was added here. So I'm just going to do a Windows key, Shift S is the hotkey. And I'll just paste that into the pull request. Cool. All right, so the other thing I wanted to look at, and I'm not entirely sure how to approach this problem, but it has to do with we ended up, or Jeff Fritz in his stream this morning added a new, or he kind of split out our functions API project into to pull the definition of the classes out into this common folder, which is great. We definitely want that. But what makes it tricky now is that I can't just come in here and right click and go open code and have all of the code available to me in that VS Code instance, because the common project that's referenced is not a part of that folder. Although it does have the common project in here now, so why does it have it there? That's because I added a workspace, added it to my workspace. Git commit M smiley face or sweaty face. I like it. I know that you can do commit messages with emoji, and that's not something that I've ever actually tried. I should really do that. Always fun to inject emoji into places where you don't think it should be, like command line messages. Okay. So there's this concept of workspaces, and we could definitely just check in the workspace, but then people need to know. So workspace in Visual Studio Code is just a file that contains a bunch of folders that you want included in that workspace. So we could tell it to do that, but then people need to know that they need to open that workspace instead of just opening the folder. So I'm wondering if there's just a different way that we can structure this. Well, I'm not coming up with a good idea off the top of my head, so I might just have to think on that one and come back to it another day. We can't solve everything in a single stream. Not like back in the day in school when you could just, no project was too big to pull off during an all-nighter. With enough coffee anyway. Let's see. Where do we want to go from here? Well, I hope people got a good sense of the project at least. I don't know if for those who maybe aren't familiar with the project, I mean, I've talked about it a bit here on the stream, but best place for resources is on the TwoWeeksReady, HTBox TwoWeeksReady repo. And you'll find, again, as I said, there's you have the ability to go and actually try out the live version of the app here that gets published every time we commit to a oh, sorry. Just looking at the link you sent me there, Coding Bandit. So asking, adding reference to another project in VS Code. So we have added the reference to the solution already and to the CS proj. That part's okay. The thing that's a challenge is just that it doesn't, the folder with that code doesn't actually show up in there, I guess, unless you add this extension, which would, no, that's just one to add add a reference. So I'll show you if I close this without, or if I close the solution itself, sorry, the workspace, file, close workspace, don't save. So if I come in here and I go to the API folder, oops, here's my API with the solution file in it. If I do code dot here to open this folder in Visual Studio Code, I mean, the app compiles fine and will run, but the challenge we have is that the TwoWeeksReady.common folder doesn't show up in here because we only have the API folder open. And that's a problem only because now the this TwoWeeksReady.common is like up a level in the folder structure. I'm wondering if yeah, we could have the guidance to create your own workspace, or you know what, let's just add a workspace at least as a starting point, just so that people don't get stuck by this. So if I define a workspace here and I save the workspace, I can call it the API workspace, and I can save it in this folder. So now what you can do, yeah, this isn't a terrible solution, so if I come in here now, instead of opening the folder, I can just open the workspace. So as long as I open the workspace, everything works fine. We have the reference to the project. So yeah, let's just add that guidance to the README now. Everybody always reads the README, right? It's not a problem. In VS Code, code tour onboarding, what else do we have in here? Open up the preview so it's a little bit easier to read. Setting up CosmosDB, create a local settings.json. Okay, so I think what I'll do is just put right before here, or right here maybe. Oh, does it mess with startup project? No, I don't think it does. That's a good question. Let's find out. So I'm in the workspace now. Within the API, we have our launch settings and everything in the VS Code folder. I think that all works fine. I can still just press F5 and it runs the app so that I can debug it within VS Code. So I think that part's fine. The startup stuff is all fine. I think we just have to give people that guidance, like you said, to, if they're using VS Code, open the api.code workspace in VS Code. And using VS Visual Studio, putting the version number in there is a good way to encourage them to finally release a new version of Visual Studio. Open the api.sln file in Visual Studio 2019. I'm just going to add that to the existing PR. workspace and guidance in README. Digging Dave's chill coding vibe. This is how I code all day long. I'm just usually not on stream, so I just talk to myself while I'm doing it. Keeping myself company. Cool. Okay, that is up there in a PR, ready for review. Carrie is usually the one who reviews my PRs. She's usually really quick at it too. No pressure. Or maybe she'll do it in her stream, and that's how she'll kick off her couple hours of coding as part of our codeathon today. Going back to what I was talking about before, the little distraction about the workspaces. Yeah, we're building this app. It's around emergency preparedness. It is technology-wise, it's a PWA on the front end, the progressive web app. We want it to be as accessible, available to people as possible without requiring to go through a store to do releases, and also just really easy for really anybody within the community to come in and pick up issues and start contributing to the project. So some of the reasons behind why we chose the PWA technology as the base for the app side of things. On the back end, it's Azure Functions with a CosmosDB data store behind it. Yes, Coding Bandit Carrie pointing out that the checks are still in progress. She cannot merge yet, especially since I just pushed something. So we have that Azure Functions backend. Everything's hosted in Azure. We have a CosmosDB data store behind the scenes, storing the data for this thing. And Auth0 has contributed a license for the project so that we can do authentication and all of our identity stuff through there. Looks like that check is done. Some code needs to be scrutinized closer than other code. Yes, you're right, Sysmas. Very right. And so the other thing that we're doing, technology side of things, is we're using GitHub Actions here. We currently have two different workflows set up, one for the app and one for the API. So if anybody checks in a change to the API, what happens is, well, if you submit a pull request, what happens is it will go and build the app, just make sure that you haven't broke anything. Eventually we want it to run tests. That's one of the things that I want to do soon here on the project, is go and add some automated UI tests. I really like Playwright for that. That's something that on my YouTube channel, we have a few episodes on exploring Playwright, but this would allow us to do end-to-end testing on different platforms and different browsers. That's something that I'm going to look at adding to the project sometime soon, once we have a little bit more functionality, but just a few smoke tests to make sure that we haven't broke like the base functionality of the application. But we have that GitHub action, goes and makes sure something didn't break, just basic checks in place for the pull request. And then when that pull request gets merged to master, the build runs again, runs through the same build steps, but then there's one last step that it does where it goes and actually deploys this thing out to the Azure environment, the development environment, so that people can come and test at this URL, the 2WR dev.azureedge.net. And on the function side, same kind of thing. So if you make a change to the API, it triggers a build on that end of things. It will do a .NET build on the API. Again, we'd like it to run some tests. Don't have tests written yet, but we'll get there. And does those checks as part of the pull request check. And then when the pull request gets merged into master, it will do the build again and then do a deploy of the Azure functions out to Azure. So every time a pull request gets merged, that development version, it gets deployed out to that development version, and anybody in the community can go out and test where we're at with the app. And because it is a progressive web app, you should be able to get those updates even if you install it on your phone, like doing an add to home screen, install the PWA on your phone, you should get those updates as we're going as well. Just kind of automatically, because that's how web apps work. One of the great things about them. And Carrie has done a lot of work with the folks at in Washington that are kind of driving the project that we're building it for in terms of kind of speccing out the features and giving us some details in terms of the entities we need to model here, the API endpoints that we need to build and that we have, and what the intended functionality is of the application. So if you want to learn more about the app and what we're trying to build, head to the repo, check out the wiki, and then we also have a number of issues that have been added here where you can take a look, see if there's something that looks interesting for you to take on. And even if some of these look too big and too daunting, it's okay to tackle just a small piece of it too. So hoping to see some more activity from the community, looking forward to it, and looking forward to driving the project forward. So we're getting ready shortly we'll be rating Coding Bandit's stream once she's ready to go, which should be any time now, just waiting for the message from her that she's ready. No pressure though, we can find something else to work on if you aren't ready yet. Let's take a look at, so this did run, and it should be out there, but I suspect that if I come here, I'm not going to have the new functionality yet. If I come to my emergency kits, oh, it's there. Magic. It's live. Sometimes it takes a little while for that new version to get deployed, even though it says that it was deployed here in GitHub Actions. It takes a little while for it to show up. And that's because this is being hosted so the files themselves for the app are hosted in Azure Blob Storage, and then we have a CDN in front of it. And it sometimes takes just a few minutes for that CDN to purge the index.html that bootstraps all of this application. So sometimes you'll come in here and you're not quite getting the latest version yet. There's like a 5 to 10, up to a 10-minute delay sometimes on that, but today it went through really quickly, which is nice. So I come in here and I have none of that data that I had earlier, but that's only because this is actually hitting the real database up in Azure this time, not my local test emulator. So Dave's cool kit is going to be orange because I am the orange ASP.NET monster. And it's going to be an ambulance. And it's going to contain things that are necessary. So that is in there now, and while we're waiting, we'll do something kind of fun. I'm logging into Azure. And we're just going to take a look at some of those resources, because why not? It's always interesting to see where these things are hosted and how that all works behind the scenes. So here in Azure, we have a few different resources that make up the application. We've got a Azure Functions backend. So that's the function app here. Let me zoom in a bit. That is that Functions app. We have the storage that I talked about, where those where the files for the app are stored, and then the CDN that's in front of it, and then our CosmosDB instance. So that's basically everything that makes up the app. There's a central US plan here. That's an app service plan, consumption-based plan that's hosting the Azure function. And that's basically it. So if we look at the blob storage, it's pretty straightforward. There's a $web container in here that has all of the files for our application. So the index.html, our cache manifest, and service worker.json, all that good stuff that makes up a PWA and the JavaScript assets. That's all just in blob storage. And we've got application insights hooked up to this thing, so I can actually come in here and see any requests that are coming into the server. For example, there should be some calls to, let me just reset that. Where's the reset button? Yeah, so we have things like the calls to create an emergency kit or get a list of emergency kits. We can drill into those and see what happens when you do that. I'm a big fan of application insights here, but you have the ability to see that when somebody makes a call to emergency kit create, it also makes a call to create a document in that CosmosDB instance, and you can see some details about what it's doing, so the operation name being the name of the function that was called, and do we get any details on what the CosmosDB? No, we don't. But we do see that the command that was called, so it's making a call to the TWR database and the emergency kits collection, and it's doing a post to that to add a document to that collection. Other cool things that you can see in here is things like the application map. So you can, we don't have a whole lot going on here yet, but you can see that we have our function instance here that makes calls over to CosmosDB. So you can see that in the last hour we've had 37 calls from the Functions app over to Cosmos. And you can see interesting things like the average length of the call, or the average duration of the call, what calls it's making, so get collection, create document, query documents, and you can drill into that and start investigating performance. Lots of really interesting things here that you can, lots of insight that you get from application insights, which is tons of fun. Folks watching, have you had a chance ever to work with App Insights? No comment. If you haven't, and you do have the opportunity to, it is a lot of fun. And getting the message from Carrie that she is ready. So let's go and raid her channel. Thanks for joining me today, folks. I'm fairly new to the Twitch thing. Been doing this on YouTube for a little longer, but thanks for joining me today, and follow. I'm going to try to do this a little bit more regularly on Twitch now, and try to set up a bit of a schedule around contributing to the 2 Weeks Ready app. We'll see you next time. All right. Hey, how does this rating thing work? Does it happen instantly, or is it going to take a few minutes? Like I said, new to Twitch. Not really sure how this works. It's happening.